Okay, let's get the rest of this model done. Now, the keys here are, again, I hope you see the magic of the historic switch. We'll see how we use it, especially in getting these closing balances to conform to history or the forecast. And a lot of this will be similar to what we've done in the past. So the first thing to do is realize that all of our assumptions come from this line that was in the square. And the second thing is, if it's the historic switch, let's go up and get the actual number. Otherwise, we're going to go up, take this assumption. Whoops, we're going to go take the previous ones times 1 plus the growth rate. Okay, that's, of course, you could come up with all sorts of ways. Let's do the same thing for the capex to sales. First of all, we put our capex to sales from our little square box, and then if it's the history, then we take the capex to sales and we multiply by the sales. If it's the history, then we take the capex. Otherwise, we take the capex to sales and multiply it by sales. That's for the forecast. Okay, for the accounts receivable or AR to sales, we do the same thing. We get our assumptions, and then if it's the history, then we take the actual amount. I don't know if you really have to do this because of the way we set it up. It would work either way, but we multiply that by the sales. Oops, I hope, did I do that okay? No. Then we take this and we multiply it by the total revenues. Okay, and then now we can get the working capital change as this one minus the last one. Okay, and the same thing for the depreciation rate. We got our assumption. Unbelievable that I didn't get this stupid macro to work. And then if it's the history, let's take our actual depreciation. Otherwise, we'll take our depreciation rate. And this time, I guess we have to multiply it by the opening balance of the plant. Now, here's where it starts to get really nifty. If it's the history, then we're just going to take the actual closing balance of the net plant. Otherwise, we're going to do exactly what it says. Take the opening balance plus the capex minus the depreciation. Now, as we do in every single circumstance, the opening balance is the closing balance. We can start with a blank. We've got our capex, I hope, from just up here, and we've got our depreciation from up here. So we're forcing the closing balance to be the actual in the history. And then we put our interest income rate here. I hope I didn't do something silly with the interest income rate, because we're going to use that. I'll just press Shift Control 5. God. And then let's do the same thing for our cash balance. If it's the history, then we take the actual cash balance off of our balance sheet. Otherwise, we go to the opening balance and add the cash. That's the idea. Opening balance equal to closing balance. This time, and this is the key that we did in the very first exercise, this cash that is changed. Oops, I put this in the wrong place, didn't I? The closing balance should have been one below. And why this format's funny, I don't know. Figure that out later. Okay. The new cash that's generated is all the way at the very bottom. and then the cash that is used is reduced. The reduction is always first before the used, and then we have our cash balance, and then our interest income. If it's the history, then we use our actual amount. Otherwise, let's take the interest rate and multiply it by the opening balance to avoid any potential for circular reference. If it's the history, it's repetitive, but it's worth it. We take the actual balance sheet debt. Otherwise, we take the opening balance plus this. How could we have gotten anywhere at all without this history? And I think I did it wrong again. Did I take the G107, the opening balance plus the debt minus this? And as we did before, these things come from, these things come from the cash flow statement. So any new debt we get is at the very end. It should say, this is an error, it should say addition to new debt when it's positive. And this is, and then I'm going to fix that error, of course. And then it's a reduction in debt when cash flow is positive. Hope I didn't make some silly mistake, probably did. And then our interest expense, I didn't put the interest rate here, did I? Let's put the interest rate up here, just to be a little more transparent. Interest expense rate here, and silly shit. And then the interest expense is this times the, if it's the historic switch, then we take the actual interest expense. I know you're probably getting completely sick of this, but it hopefully will make you a believer. And then now we can just start filling things in. We have our revenues just from our revenue section. Then we get our depreciation from our depreciation section. We take the subtotal. And our interest expense is from here. Our interest income. Oh, my dog's barking. I don't care. That's okay. She's allowed to bark. She's not doing really well right now, so I don't care if you don't like it that my dog barks. Okay, and the cash flow state. Then we need a payout ratio. I think that's another assumption we put up here, or we forgot to. Shoot. Well, I'll do it the way we do it always. Let's put a fixed payout ratio of 60%. And if it's the historic year, then we're going to take the actual dividends that we, where did I put the dividends divided by the actual net income. Otherwise, let's just take that 1, 2, 3, F4. Okay, so that clearly should have been in the assumption section. Very bad form there. And let's take the EBITDA. And why does it say, well, EBIT and EBITDA? I didn't put any taxes in there. That's the same. And as we did before, go up and find our working capital change. And then we get our cash flow from our operations as the difference. We have the capital expenditures just above, just exactly how we worked on them before. And then we have the difference as the operating cash flow. We can take our interest expense from the profit and loss, our interest income, and dividends are the maximum of the payout ratio times the net income, or 0. Okay, and then we can take our cash flow, subtract the interest, add the interest income minus that. Whoops. Oh, come on. Minus this one. And then this is where we have to do our maximum and minimum again. Since this is the second time, I'm going to do it a slightly bit faster, but we say, well, if this is a minus, first put the maximum of this or 0. And then if it's the minimum, we go up here and put the debt. Okay. And I hope good. I put this, I hope I did that. Okay. And then we put the maximum of this or 0, because if it's positive, then we're going to reduce the debt. And then we better take the minimum of the opening balance of the debt. And I think if you were paying attention, I just made a mistake in the last one, because this should have been the opening balance of the cash. Did I use the debt? I think I used the debt instead of the cash. So then our remaining cash flow after this, it's we do exactly what we're told here, plus the reduction in cash flow minus this, and then we can put a maximum of this or 0, and maximum of minus this or 0. Okay, I'm not sure how we're doing on time, but now we can just start collecting our balance sheet account. So let's take the closing cash balance. Let's take our accounts receivable to sales amount. Let's take our net plant, which should be up in the depreciation section here. And then we can press Alt equals to get our sum, and then we can take the debt, and the debt balance is the right at the end here. And then I should have put an equity balance, because we'll put an opening balance. We'll add the net income less the dividends and closing balance. And then we use the same approach. If it's the one more time for the historic switch, if it's the historic switch, we go all the way up to the balance sheet and find our equity. Otherwise, we take the opening balance plus the net income minus the dividends. Okay, and then let's make the opening balance equal to the closing balance, get the net income from our profit and loss statement, and get the dividends from our cash flow statement. And so then we can put this in, and oh, okay, if it didn't balance in the history, that's pretty bad, but well, certainly could happen. Certainly has happened to me, so that's a little bit good news. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay. Now, I see. The Shift Control R was just looking one line above and had a little bit of an issue. It seems to be taking just a little bit of time. It shouldn't take this much time. And let's see what we have. Why is this one like this? Oops. Okay. I'm afraid to look at the balance sheet. What a coward I am. Okay. And I didn't put a test in here, so. Okay, we should be okay. We're okay on the history. That's good. And then we're not okay on the forecast. So that means that I have to temporarily give you a pause. Okay, here's the end. The balance sheet finally balances. I made so many mistakes, I don't know where to count them. The opening balance of the cash wasn't right. The closing balance wasn't right. The EBITDA took the EBIT instead of the revenues, and I fixed them, and then we're all finished. And the balance sheet balances. The very last thing we're going to do is just show you how to make a little graph of the assumptions compared to the forecast. Okay, so that's it. 15 minutes. Okay, this is the continuation of the second exercise, and I made the balance sheet, and here's the equity balance. Remember, we just did that. Here's the minority balance, and the balance sheet balances in the first year. That's good. But in the second year, we have a difference. Okay, this was the difference between, so we may, Control Z. Okay, oh no, I've got to make a little macro that copies the other way, I guess. It's so easy to do. Now, why don't we look for the error? And I did make an error. Now I cheated. I know the error I made. I think when I went through this, I can say I did it on purpose, but we should have added the cash balance instead of subtracted the cash balance. And when we did this, now everything works, and we can then go down and copy everything. I hope. Do you think this Shift Control R was going to work this time? Shift Control R, and now we have our whole model built, and it didn't take all that long, and oh crap, we have a little bit of a difference. So guess what? I'm stopping the video. Well, that wasn't a big problem. Here's the only problem I had. Of course, made another error by not taking the correct short-term debt balance, and when we take that and copy it, we get this, and now we can see if this equals 0, and we can put our wonderful little aggregate test. I should have done this right at the beginning. I'll make this, and okay, and here's what this exercise is. When you receive this exercise, you can make one without the titles, and then I'm going to make this one named completed exercise, and you can make one yourself that works through the model. So this is a more complicated version, and it's still not that bad, really, is it? Okay, because we did it in